Good morning, guys. Welcome to Liverpool FC Journal. I'm Owen James. This is your Liverpool News Update. It is the 5th of January. We're 5 days into the window, still no movement on that front, and we are in the run of 2 games within the capital. A game yesterday that was dull, I think is the right word. 2-2. You look on the face of it, and any sort of 2-2, you kind of think, well, 2-2, it must have been an exciting game. Well, it bloody wasn't. There was about 20 minutes in the second half where we played well. And the rest of the game was just the same old boring, slow, crappy, build-up, overplaying nonsense that we've seen for far too long this season. Look, Liverpool are 9 unbeaten. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. 9 unbeaten. 4 of those, of course, have been draws. And as I've said on previous videos, of those 9 games, some of them could have easily gone the other way. The Sunderland game, for example, had Chiesa not got back. Tottenham, we cling on against 9 men. Wolves, we cling on against the worst team in the league. Although, well done to Wolves winning this weekend against probably now the new worst team in the league, West Ham. So, look, I think it's just, I don't understand this. I don't get the team. I think, look, let's get some dose of reality. I think, in the cold light of day, when you've reflected on things, and look, I'm not going to sit here this morning and tell you that everything is rosy in the Anfield Garden, that everything is great and that Slot is the greatest manager since time began, because he quite clearly is not. But look, the situation is what it is. I mean, you look at that team that he was named yesterday. I think obviously the biggest concern yesterday was when it came out that Hugo Ekitike was injured. Hopefully that is not a long-term thing. Hopefully he will be available for the Arsenal game on Thursday, a game that I'm already exceptionally worried about. But that team that he named was the strongest he could have named. The worrying thing for me is you look at that bench yesterday. Mamalashvili, Woodman, 2 keepers on the bench, Gomez, Chiesa, Robertson, Frimpong, Nioni, Ramsey and Ngamoa. It's just shows there is literally no. Yes, there are injuries. Yes, Isak was out. Yes, Ekitike was out. Yes, Salah is at AFCON. But realistically, you take those 3. And yes, Giovanni Leone is injured. You take those 3, and I'm not including Leone for this in a minute because I don't think they'd see Leone as a starter this season, and I don't think Leone would play a lot this season. But you take those 3 out, and does that bench look any stronger? Yes, a little bit stronger, but still not as strong as perhaps other teams around the league. I mean, you look, for instance, yesterday and then the other day at some of the other teams in this Premier League. Manchester City seemed to be kind of stuttering in the title race. Certainly a 1-1 draw yesterday with Chelsea with that 94th minute goal. But, you look at Manchester City's bench, Doku, Kusanov, Trafford, Rico Lewis. They've got some good players on that bench, to come in. You look at, the team we're going to play on Thursday, Arsenal's bench, yes, on Saturday against Bournemouth. Again, they had to fight hard for their win, but they still got it. You look at that bench that they had. They've got Saka was on the bench, Jesus, Trossard, Marino, White, Eze, Norgard, Skelly. They rotated their team, and it still looked their bench is strong. Their starting 11 was Raya, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Hincapi, Rice, Zubamendi, Odegaard, Madueke, Gyökeres, Martinelli. And then they can bring on the likes of Saka and Jesus and Trossard and Marino. They've got options there with Ben White still, Eberake Eze. Eze would walk into most Premier League teams. There's a real lack of strength in depth in this squad. Now, look, before anyone says, well, that's a reason why the manager's perhaps not doing as well as he could be. Well, let's get one thing straight. It's kind of the manager's fault that we've got a smaller squad, because he's banged on all year about wanting a smaller squad and not wanting a big squad. So we're kind of in this position partly because of him anyway. So look, he's not all innocent on this one, and he's not the victim on this one that some people perhaps would paint him as. And it kind of goes against a little bit what we were told at the start of the season, that Liverpool were building a team to compete on all 4 fronts. And it annoys me so much when I hear Liverpool fans making excuses for Arne Slot and the team at the moment by saying, oh, it's a transitional season, No, it isn't. Go back. If you're one of those fans that says this is a transitional season, you're kidding yourself. Go back to the start of the season, look at the quotes from Richard Hughes, look at the quotes from Arne Slot, which was, we're building a squad to compete on all 4 fronts. That's the quotes. They're there in black and white. Go and check them out, because it's not a transitional season. This was never meant to be a transitional season. So let's get there. Let's put that little argument to one side and forget it, shall we? Right. So look, let's look at yesterday's game. Let's look at yesterday's game, obviously. So yesterday's game. Whoops, wrong person. Let's look at yesterday's game and look at some of the stats from yesterday's game, shall we? Look, the stats from yesterday's game. We had 10 shots. They had 7. We only had 2 shots on target. We had 58% of the possession. And in 90 minutes or 99 minutes or however many minutes we ended up playing yesterday, we only had 2 shots on target. Yes, we scored from both of them. Woohoo! But only 2. That's it. That's shocking. That is poor. And a lot of it was down to the fact that we overplay constantly. We overpass constantly. There were times yesterday where we get the ball, and if you watch, the midfielders are getting the ball, McAllister's getting the ball, Sobbo's getting the ball, Grav's getting the ball, and they get the ball, and you watch, and one of the fullbacks will make a run forward, or Wirtz will make a run forward, or Gakpo will make a run forward, and instead of passing the ball forward, they pass it sideways, or they pass it backwards. Now, that's not a natural thing for a footballer. That's coached. That's following a coaching plan. Right? Instead of playing 1 to 2 killer passes, playing 10 to 11 to keep the ball and slow the game down. That is coached. Okay? And that is clearly what Slot is coaching them to do. To slow the game down, to just retain possession, to keep the ball working over. And the other issue with that is when you do come, and we haven't played a team playing in a low block for the last 2 games, despite what Arne Slot may tell you. If you play a low block team, that just lets them get set back into their low block and makes them difficult to play against. And Slot can come out with this rubbish that he comes out with about, people want us to pass the ball faster, but that's difficult against teams playing lower block. Well, watch the evidence, Arne. You get your midfielders on the ball quickly, but they're not using the ball quickly because their first intention is not to hit the runners that are going forward, which they were yesterday. There was a couple of incidents. I think one where Maka gets the ball, Gakpo makes a run, and rather than hit Gakpo, who's running through, he turns, passes it back. Why? That's coached. That is what Slot is telling them to do. It's poor. It's piss poor. It isn't good enough. We had 20 minutes yesterday where we played well. 20 minutes out of 90. Coming off the back of 96 minutes against Leeds where we were absolutely shocking. The football is diabolical. I mean, yes, we're 4th in the league at the moment, but that owes more down to the fact that Chelsea, Manchester United and all those teams in and around us are just worse. I mean, Manchester United were lucky to come away with a point against Leeds yesterday, a draw. Chelsea sit 3 points behind us, Man United 3 points behind us, Brentford 4 points behind us, Sunderland 4 points behind us. Look, none of those teams, Newcastle, are 5 points behind us. None of those teams are good teams this season. They're all very, very poor teams this season. And you look at it and you just think, to be honest with you, we're going to get Champions League football more through the fact that, not that because anything we're doing is amazing, more to do with the fact that Chelsea, Man United, Brentford, etc. are all shit, and Newcastle are shit. That's more to do with it, rather than the fact that we're any good. Like I said, it's just the most boring, dullest, crappiest football to watch. Now, a big test obviously will come on Thursday. And how that game goes, I think we'll be very conservative. I think we'll be very boring. I think we'll get done 1-0 on a set piece, if I'm being honest with you. But look, again, it's just not good football. It is boring football, and people can talk about, that's a game we would have won 2-1 yesterday had they not got that wonder strike. But even the wonder strike, which was a fantastic goal from Harrison Reed, don't get me wrong, partly is down to the fact that Canate doesn't get out and close him down. The centre-backs yesterday were shocking. They were pretty poor yesterday. The way that Harry Wilson did them yesterday, that was down to poor defending, just standing in space, trying to look cool. The whole situation around the second goal. Again, if one of the centre-halves gets out, Canate, it was on his side, gets out, puts a body in front of that shot. The shot doesn't go anywhere near the goal. Even Alisson's lacking in confidence at the moment, which is quite worrying. Perhaps it's playing behind that defence. Perhaps it's the manager. The manager, to me, is lost. He's lost. And these stories don't go away about him being gone at the end of the season. I hope they're true. But, a lot of these people who are slot in, I read these arguments, he won the league last season. Yeah, with Klopp's team, Klopp's tactics, the only thing he tweaked was keeping the players fitter for longer, which meant we won the league. Had Klopp kept his players fit for longer, we would have won the league under Klopp. He then ripped up Klopp's tactics, ripped up Klopp's team, brought in new players, starts to play to his tactics, and we look woeful. We look shite. So let's get away from that he's won the league. He didn't win the league. Klopp won the league. Let's also get away from the fact that it's a transitional season. As I've said, it's not a transitional season. This manager is not a good manager. He is not a good manager, and he is not going to take this club forward, I don't believe. And we get this argument of, well, who else is there available? I don't know. It's not my job. Look, we could, Nagelsmann could be available after the World Cup. Enrique could be available after the end of this season. Ancelotti could be available after the World Cup. But you know what? I don't know. Do you know why I don't know? Because I don't have the scouting network. I don't have their phone numbers. I can't ring them up and ask them because I'm just a fan doing a podcast. So this argument of all these people who are slot out, who they can't suggest anyone who could replace him. It's not our job to replace him. It's the club's job to replace him. It's the club's job to find a replacement, not ours. We don't have a scouting network. We don't have a multi-million-dollar scouting network. We don't have the phone numbers of the agents of these peoples. We can't ring them. So let's get this crap out of the way. Let's get this crap out of the way. One update on a transfer story around Joel Ordonez. Let me just quickly find the image. There it is here. Joel Ordonez. Apparently now it is looking like Liverpool are not going to be interested in Joel Ordonez, despite all the stories that came out of his native Ecuador. Liverpool apparently don't see Ordonez as a player that they want at this moment in time. They say that they've already got their developmental centre back in Giovanni Leone, are not interested in another one, which to me is just utter bollocks. I mean, this is a 21-year-old lad who is actually playing Champions League football, playing regularly for Club Brugge in the Belgian Premier League, and has played regular football. So to me, he's not a developmental prospect. He's a player who could actually go into the team from day one. It seems that there's a real joy at the minute in Liverpool in denying this transfer link, not wanting that transfer link. This comes off the back, obviously, of the story that the main reason why Semenyo deal collapsed was over wages. That Manchester City are going to give him 180 grand a week, and Liverpool weren't prepared to give him that. FSG being FSG again. I think, as was suggested last summer, it was a one-off, and I think it is showing to be a one-off. FSG are back to being tight, and the clamps are firmly on the wallet. I'll be honest with you, I honestly don't see us signing a single player during this transfer window, which is basically, for me, giving up on the season. Guys, let me know your thoughts on yesterday, on the situation at the club at this moment in time. Thank you for watching Liverpool FC Journal. Please like, comment, share and subscribe. Help the channel to keep growing. We're 9 from 100. Let's get to 100 by the Arsenal game. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you on the next one.